welcome into Triple Zeroz, the anti-hot take sports show. I am your host, Josh Buckhalter. Be sure to follow me on X at JoshGBuck. Hit the Facebook page, Clocker Sports. Website is clockersports.com, and the email address is contact@clockersports.com. And you can always follow the show on X and on Instagram at Clocker Sports, and 30 Pod is on X and Facebook. And, of course, like I said, you can read all the stuff clockersports.com. We have a heavy football episode, a lot of Bears talk to get to. We will touch on some NBA and other stuff as well, but missed a lot of time, so we got to catch up on a lot of Bears offseason happenings. Most importantly, the trade for Justin Fields to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I have a reaction to that, and just really breaking down the Bears offseason, talking about the NBA playoffs are coming up really quickly. We only got a couple of more weeks worth of games coming up here left here in the regular season, and of course, like I said, back in the NFL, some more free agency stuff to touch on before we wrap up today's show, which probably about standard length, but you never know. We are planning to do some lifting around here. This show, I think, started in 2018. I want to say I began doing this pod. Maybe late after that. Might have been a little bit later than that. But it's been this look for a while. I kind of want to freshen it up a little bit, make it a little bit more, make it pop a little bit more, and clean some things up on the technical side. So be on the lookout for those changes before the NFL season kicks off, and also thinking about bringing it back. Not even thinking about. We're going to bring back the Clocker Sports podcast, and I'll probably leave that one to be focused on the Bears coverage going forward once the season begins, when I start getting player interviews and things of that nature. So be on the lookout for the Clocker Sports podcast in your feeds. Again, when NFL season starts, when we start getting back in the locker rooms and things of that nature. But a lot of things happening. The consistency is going to try to come back up as well, even if it's just 15 to 20 minute check-ins on a more regular basis than what they have been. Check out the last episode. We had Kevin Chenard of NBA.com, Hawks.com. I always want to say Hawks.com, but it's really NBA.com/Hawks. He also is the social media coordinator for the Bally Sports Hawks feed on X. So go ahead and check out that interview. Really good stuff with him about the Hawks season and just, kind of surprises, the Jalen Johnson's development, the absence of DeAndre Hunter for that long stretch and how much he's meant. You can see it now, but we talked about it before he got to establish himself as a bench threat. So, yeah, a lot of good stuff in that episode. Check that out. Again, you can check out Clocker Sports on all your feeds, and Clocker Sports for the latest Bears, Vikings, Hawks, Lakers, Bulls, and Broncos news. We are trying to stay in all corners of the globe and really just be active, because that's the only way that you're going to make it. I told somebody the other day, there's a line from Outkast, and I forget which member said it, but it was, if you don't move your feet, then I don't eat. So we like neck to neck. So please check out the work. That's a fancy way of saying please check out the written and the video and the audio stuff, please. That being said, let's get right into it. The Chicago Bears traded Justin Fields to the Pittsburgh Steelers for a conditional 6th-round pick that can become a 4th-round pick depending on playing time. It's quite the leap to go 2 rounds up depending on playing time. It's 51% on this season. Fields, interestingly enough, is there as a backup to Russell Wilson, and Wilson is in, I guess, has mutual interest. I don't know if they're in talks yet, but there is mutual interest with Wilson and the Steelers front office in an extended deal or long-term deal after this season. So we'll see how that all plays out, because they've already given Wilson the starting job to fight for in training camp before Kenny Pickett got traded. Pickett did not like that. That's why he asked for the trade, opening the door for Fields to get in there. And so let's get right into the reaction. Now, we had players come out, and you had DJ Moore, business is business. DeMarcus Walker said the same thing. You had a couple of players, former players notably, call out the way things handled. Justin Jones said that he wished Fields got a fair shot. You had Travis Gibson point out some stuff too as well. Where I stand on it is like this. I remember the excitement of Fields being drafted. I remember my excitement of Fields being drafted because I felt like the Bears had shown conviction, just like they had with Mitch, right? I was not a fan of that, but I am always a fan of conviction. If you are operating your franchise with a clear sense of direction, then I'm a fan of that. That's fine. I can't fault you for being wrong. You thought that you were right. That's fine. It's very easy to say sit in hindsight and judge things, but I think in the moment it's a little bit more difficult. And so, like I said, if there is no dawdling, if you are direct, if you are forceful in your moves with your franchise, I can't do anything but honor that. And so, I respected the move to get up Fields. I liked Fields in college. I liked his skill set. I liked what he could become. That said, I was very down on how the Bears, before this front office regime took over, how they handled him in his first season. Remember his first game? I think it was his first game. He got blitzed for 8-9 sacks by the Cleveland Browns, right? Got whooped on. They wouldn't even help chip Myles Garrett. Like, it was just a bad situation. Now, he got drafted into a lame duck situation. That was also not conducive to his success. But I don't think it was necessarily as detrimental as other situations because he wasn't drafted into a situation where the quarterback didn't want him, a la John Fox and Mitchell Trubisky. And that was one of the biggest gripes that I had there going into that situation was that, you don't have the head coach and your front office on the same page. That seemed like to be always an issue. Fields seemed to be different. Of course, they also got him at the tail end of a failed regime in Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace. So now that they're gone, you have Poles in place. And while this move might disappoint a lot of people, I know it does. I've seen it. And I wish that they would have done this for Fields going into last season, right? I wish that this was possible because we know there was a lot of cap gymnastics going on in 2022, right? Last year they started putting pieces around, and we saw some progress from him. And to his credit, Fields' credit, he has improved every single season as a passer. I was not fully on board, right, with the retaining of Matt Eberflus going into last season. I was uncertain how they would handle it after this past season, and I think that there's a big target. Not like that sounds so aggressive, but like there's a his seat is warmer than it probably would be in the position that he's in, given the fact that they are about to take. Don't mind that erroneous sound effects. But the position that they're in, taking the first quarterback in the draft, or first pick rather, and taking the quarterback with that pick, it's very similar to some situations that they've been in before. But I don't know that Eberflus is in that lame duck spot that we all think he should be in. I do think it's notable that he has a potential head coaching candidate in Shane Waldron on his staff, somebody that if he does flounder, I don't know if Ryan Poles would hesitate to replace him with Shane Waldron. Not to mention that they added a passing game coordinator in Thomas Brown, who has served as an offensive coordinator before. So there's a ready-built staff in place, right, to transition if Eberflus falters or whatever for whatever reason next season. As far as the player move goes, I'm not one who believes that the salary, the contract per se, is the big issue. Because, this roster's built to win now, so I don't think they were worried about having to pay Justin Fields if he balled out. That, to me, I think is a straw man that is made to scare fans who always worry about what somebody else is spending. Don't worry about that. That ain't your money, first and foremost. Second of all, it's still 2 years down the road, and they wouldn't have to. There's franchise tags. There's all types of things that they could have done before they got to that point. It was really boggling to my mind to hear people, but you got to pay him next year. Oh my God, but then you got to pay him. You got to pay him $200 million. You don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. You never did. That was stupid. I don't usually say that to people, and I try not to, but that was like the most short-sighted, nonsensical thing ever, because clearly there are other methods to retaining players, and let's not say that it doesn't guarantee that he's going to get that much money. It was just crazy. Anyway, so I don't think it was financially motivated. I do believe that it was a lot to do with preconceived notions and confirmation bias. And those can be viewed as negatives, or if you are paying attention to the way the NFL works in general, those are just the norms for when a regime takes over. Now, what I mean by that is Ryan Poles came from Kansas City, where he was instrumental in the scouting and drafting right of Patrick Mahomes, who the Chiefs traded up to go and get. You have C.J. Stroud, who the Bears passed on last year, who took a Houston Texans roster that no one would have said was far better, if better at all, than the Bears roster last year and made the playoffs. You had him pick up an offense quicker than I think anybody would have predicted for a rookie, let alone a rookie going into that situation. So then you take what you saw in the postseason, right? Because I told you got C.J. Stroud getting you there. Then you got the Mahomes factor going back to that. He just took a team with me at wide receiver. Now, that's just a joke. Rashee Rice came on strong and proved to be a really, really valuable, really good player in this league. Just a joke. But point is, they didn't have the big star name, and somebody that I even thought, they needed in Tyreek Hill. They didn't have those guys at wide receiver, and they won the Super Bowl this year. These are the two things that I would have to imagine. I don't know, but I would have to imagine those are the two players that stick out the most in Ryan Poles' mind when he thinks about the quarterback position right now. And Stroud just entered that conversation this past season, but it's there. And I mean, it was loud. Okay? Because the conversation was never even that they were going to take Stroud. That's probably what's like, if they missed it, if they really weren't ever going to even considering taking him, which I don't think they were ever considering taking Bryce Young, to be honest with you. But you saw that. And you saw, and this is how I related to people who, when I talk to them in private conversations, when you watch the natural look, the feel of the passing game when a C.J. Stroud is operating in crunch time, when Patrick Mahomes is operating in crunch time, their natural abilities as a passer in crunch time are on full display. It looks natural. And it was brought up that in Justin Fields' scouting report in college, he was methodical. Robotic is another way to put that. And you see that. Watching games, you'll see, okay, he's going to run, he's going to drop back, here he comes. You can see him scan the field. Now, that's not to say you can't see that with all quarterbacks, but you can almost count it out in ticks. When watching games, you'll see players running, and you'll be like, throw it, get out of the pot. You can, the things that make him hold the ball are not just about trying to make the extra play. It's going through the processes of being a quarterback. That doesn't mean he can't work through it. That doesn't mean he won't improve at it. What I'm telling you is, seeing the natural starting point from some of these guys, I can understand where the Bears brass felt they weren't getting that from their QB1, okay? Now, that could be like a cold assessment for a guy who's put his body, his life, basically on the line for 3 years for a team that was never fully in on him. And when I say that, I mean they did not draft him. I told you where polls came from, and it's a different style of quarterback, right? If you look at Tyson Bagent, who they brought in last year, Nathan Peterman, those are different styles of quarterback. Brett Rippon, who they brought in this offseason, is a different style of quarterback, okay? And so you could say Caleb Williams is not that guy, but the Caleb Williams, Patrick Mahomes comparison is where you bring that all back home. So that's a long way of saying I don't think that they were ever in on Fields all the way, as much as the fans and as much as the team, the locker room came around, and the locker room was always by his side, but the fans came around. You heard him get the chance in the final game, the home finale. I don't think he was ever their guy, and it would have taken a lot for him to prove to be their guy. And as much as I didn't like how they set him up in 2022, we just saw a rookie take a roster similar. They had a lot better. Laramie Tunsil at left tackle is a big difference. And then that's not to knock Braxton Jones, who I like. I'm just saying that's an all-pro left tackle in Laramie Tunsil. These are real things that happened, right? We saw Luke Getsy, offensive coordinator Luke Getsy, who drew the ire of fans as much, if not more, than Fields throughout the past 2 years. Luke Getsy immediately got another job and was in demand around the league. So while we can debate whether or not the Bears did right by Fields, and I'm going to get into a little bit more about the return, the league moved on to other quarterbacks because Poles was asking for a return that they didn't deem commensurate to his value. They didn't value him as a potential starter, not this year. They value him as a guy who could be a starter down the road, but not this year. He was going to be a backup always this year. And so then you take that, and you can't say, well, he waited too long, because he waited so long to try to find a good situation for Fields, per ESPN's Courtney Cronin. Because I know a lot of people that I talk to don't want to hear it from me when I say that, I think he's trying to buy time, and it's not all about, I said the return wasn't as important to him as some might have thought. That was how I was putting it, because he didn't draft Fields. So it was more, he could afford, in his point of view, in his stance, he can afford to maybe take a haircut, if you want to say it that way, on Fields, because he didn't, really. It's all gravy. But he could take a haircut on the trade value to put Fields in the best position to succeed for him, because they do have a good relationship in that sense. I'm also not as surprised, I guess, because I've been covering it and seeing the interest from the Steelers and the Falcons smoke, that I figured was going to go to Kirk Cousins, but I knew that there would be a market for Fields. I knew that they would get a pick. I didn't know if it would be a 6. I thought maybe they could get a 4th outright. They didn't. Okay. But again, I'm not mad about the return when he didn't draft the guy, and he sent it to a good situation. If you're a Fields fan, you should be happy that he got sent to a place where he can succeed, because it wasn't going to be with the Bears. The writing has been on the wall for so long, and while I thought that they were building towards putting a contender around him, they were building a soft landing spot for a quarterback, which you can't deny this is. And I know that that's part of the problem that people have. Fields didn't get that chance. That's life in the NFL. As much as it pains me to be that blunt about somebody who I watched develop, who I watched, earn the respect of his peers, his teammates in that locker room. They vocally fought for him and lobbied for him this season. When you heard Ryan Poles say, but they don't have the long term, that was it right there. The window in the NFL to compete is short. And if you feel that one guy could be good, but another guy can be great, and you have a chance at the great, you're going to take the great 9 times out of 10, no matter what front office you're in. I know it's popular to rag on the Bears. I know that. I've witnessed it. It's very easy, low-hanging fruit type stuff. That doesn't make it the wrong move. Doesn't make it the wrong move for Poles, the Bears, for Fields. Okay? And like I said, if you're going to get mad at him for holding on to Fields, then you can't get mad at the return. If you're going to get mad at the return, then you can't get mad at him for holding on to Fields because it wasn't there. The offers weren't. That's what they were going to get roughly anyway. They probably, if not a 7th rounder, if not just nobody just waiting for him to get cut or whatever happens. Keeping both of them was not going to happen. You want to see a fractured locker room? That would have fractured the locker room. I am very high on the belief that the guys in the locker room can withstand this type of a shakeup and move forward. They've come out and said it basically. You don't want to believe it? That's fine. That's what they're telling you. But if you want to see that disrupted, you keep both of those guys and really give the guys something polarizing to separate over. That'll do it. That would have definitely done it. So, long story short, all that is to say, I wish Fields nothing but the best, and I think he's going to do gangbusters in Pittsburgh if he gets his chance. We'll see how motivated Wilson is, and he's been a durable guy in his career, so the Bears might not get that 4th round pick. I don't see that as being likely. But I do think Fields has a chance to develop if he gets a chance. For the Bears, they have to hope that they've made the right choice. Hope. It's all hope. That was what was anxious about it before. The devil that you know in Fields was always safer than the devil that you don't know in Caleb Williams, who there's, I guess, numerous things. There's infinite things that you could critique about him and any other prospect that you haven't seen throw in football in the NFL. But I know that a general manager who's watched 2 quarterbacks, one definitely generational, and another one who looks like he could damn well be it, while also being in a division with a guy in Jordan Love who proved to be a lot better than many people wanted. Not me, but many people around the league wanted to give him credit for early on. The Vikings are poised to get another quarterback. Who knows? They might do a blockbuster trade up and get whoever the Bears don't pick at number 1. The Lions got Jared Goff right now, who plays better now than he did before, which is something that can happen with Fields in Pittsburgh. But there's competition at quarterback, and that's just the division. We're not talking about the rest of the positions around. And you have a chance at the guy who, by all accounts, is the next greatest thing. It's dangerous living. It's a dangerous way to go. But it's also the way that most front offices go when given the chance. You can say they're risk averse, not with this position, not with quarterback. They're just not. And when all the signs point you to one direction, guess what? The writing has been on the wall for months now. I'll say weeks, because again, like I said, I thought for a while they were building. It's a veteran-laden roster that's ready to win now, compete right now. But that makes it a perfect soft landing spot for a rookie who is going to have to find his way. You got guys who can tell him and help him and show him, and that's what they're there for. And that's why having high character guys is important. But I don't think that it's the disaster that's been made out to be. I don't think that Ryan Poles, for all the errors that I think he has made, I'm not sure about the backup quarterbacks. I don't think Caleb Williams will start this year. So not having a quarterback in front of him that you know can do things is troublesome in my eyes. I'm not sure about, you surrendered draft capital for Keenan Allen and for Ryan Bates. I like Keenan Allen, but he's 32 and injury prone. Ryan Bates has not been able to keep a starting job. He had one for a full season and was not good. So I questioned the Roquan Smith trade. He bounced back. Poles did from that nicely. The Claypool trade blew up in his face. He's openly talked about how much he's learned from that trade alone. Conversely, I'd like to point out that while I am praising the Steelers' acquisition of Justin Fields, let's not act like the last time they acquired a Bears former first-round pick quarterback, it worked out. It didn't. Mitchell Trubisky is now back in Buffalo and did not do well in his opportunities in Pittsburgh. I know that it's easy to blame the Bears and say the Bears are doing the wrong thing because that's been the case. Doesn't mean that every move is that way. Doesn't mean you have to react that way every single time. And I just hope the fans will take a step back and realize, that the league is telling you the same things that your front office just did. Whether or not you want to believe them, that's fine. But that's what it is. As far as the Bears' other moves, I have mostly liked them. Like I said, we'll see about giving up draft capital for Ryan Bates, especially when you went out and signed Coleman Shelton in free agency, who looks like he might be the starter. You bring in Bates in as a backup, so you spent draft capital, 5th round pick, I believe it was, for a backup guard. The Bears needed backup guards last year, though, because both of the guards missed ample time throughout the year, so we'll put that out there, too. I like the addition of Kevin Byard. It is weird to go from one 30-year-old who you know and has been a leader in your locker room to another 30-year-old who you don't know and is now on his third team in the past 2 seasons. That's a bit confusing, a little concerning, I guess you could call it as well. And there are some Eagles fans who would say that he was cooked last year. So we'll see what the Bears can do to make that better. The Bears have a better defense than the Eagles did last year. So we'll see if they can get him to fit better. I thought they would go young at the position and continue their overhaul of the defense, and maybe they still will. They do have Elijah Hicks back there. Maybe he beats out Kevin Byard in training camp. You never know how these things end up working out. Maybe they find a steal in the draft that does that. You never know. Again, they need a pass rusher. I think that could be where they go with number 9 if they're not able to trade out. And even if they do trade back, I think that could be what they're trying to target with that second first-round pick. There's just the Keenan Allen. I like the addition. Like I said, I like the addition of Gerald Everett, right? Letting Justin Jones go is also a possibility that you go out and you try to add a stud defensive tackle in the draft. But you have Javon Dexter Sr., who's putting in work this offseason. I wrote about that for Clocker Sports. Go ahead and check that out. You have Zach Pickens. So they've planned for a lot of this, which is why I can't sit here and tell you that them doing this with Fields and going to Caleb Williams, who's been the number 1 consistent overall quarterback prospect for the past 2+ years, was not always a part of the plan if they could get in position. I would wager a bet that Fields damn near, spoiled their plans playing as well as he did. They damn near thought they were going to have to do it themselves to get the pick. I just don't see this happening without them coming in with that thought. That's why I say it's confirmation bias. I think they thought that Fields wasn't going to be their guy long term, and they were waiting for him to prove them wrong. He did a lot of things to give them pause, but ultimately did not do that. And again, as you've heard others, including myself, say multiple times, I think it came down to crunch time passing ability and how it looks and felt in those moments. It did not feel natural. It did not work often. Far too often it failed. So it's just not a surprise. Elsewhere, man, we got a lot of happenings and goings. I do like the Atlanta Falcons signing Kirk Cousins. I don't know if he's going to take them to the promised land, but he'll make them a lot more competitive, so they'll be one of the top teams in that division. We know that the Super Bowl has eluded him, as Vikings fans know, as now Commanders fans, I guess, found out. But Kirk's agent is the GOAT. Like Mike McCartney, that man needs to go. His I want to say his pen, I guess, but his cell phone needs to be in the Hall of Fame because he has just gotten that man paid over his career. And I say that after just telling you that, big success has eluded Cousins throughout his career as well. The Vikings, I think, have had losing records. They've had 1 winning record in the past 4 years. I want to say that is. Like, it hasn't been great, and he just keeps getting paid because he's the best guy on the market every time. Timing is key. Timing is certainly key. There's been a lot of shakeups around the league. So I don't know, like I said, how impactful it'll be for them big picture, but I do like the addition of Kirk Cousins. I like Baltimore getting Derrick Henry and putting him with Lamar Jackson. That's some stuff that you would see on Madden. That's the stuff I might try on Madden, man. I don't know. I don't know how else you could term that. The Rams bulked up their front line. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. I'm not even looking at lists right now. This is just moves that I know I like. The Texans bringing Danielle Hunter to player with Will Anderson is great. This is going to take a team that, like I told you, was just led to the playoffs by a rookie quarterback with a pretty strong defense as well. Going to take them up a notch, most definitely, because Danielle Hunter is coming off a 16.5 sack season, career high, by the way, and is going home. And while you could say, well, he's going to be 30 and there could be a drop-off, that's true. But I feel like you're going to get inspired effort out of him because we heard a lot of the guys coming out of Minnesota talking about how maybe they felt the interest was one-sided. And that's my wording of it, but that's just the sentiments that I gathered from reading the comments from Danielle Hunter saying he did his job this past season. Kirk Cousins talking about how the pursuit, the feeling wanted by the Falcons, right? You got Dalton Risner posting, and I wrote about this for Heavy on Vikings. You got Dalton Risner posting about wanting to be paid like a starting guard, and that's all he's really looking for. And Christian Darrisaw pushing for him to be returned. Like, these are the things that make me feel like, I guess, there's some good football left in the players that did leave Minnesota. I'm just gathering around the division before we spread out a little bit more. I did say that I like the Texans. Jacksonville, I mean, we'll see. There's the sheen is coming off of Trevor Lawrence a little bit, and I don't know if that's fair. As a guy who was not as high as him and everybody else, try that one more time. As a guy who was not as high on him as everybody else before, I think the pendulum has swung too far in the other direction amid a lot of inconsistency in terms of play and availability of some of his top weapons. And now he's lost Calvin Ridley, who had a great season in his first year back from that suspension, but now will join the division rival Tennessee Titans. So good luck with that. I'm trying to think of what else stood out. Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh, I think, is a good fit because just like with Fields, they're not relying on him to be a rhythm passer. He's going to be able to rely on the defense, rely on a running game, and then hit bombs. That's what they both want to do. They want to hit bombs. Justin Fields' deep ball is one of his best attributes, if not his best attribute, alongside his running. So I like that fit there. Denver, I'm wondering what Denver's doing at quarterback because I can't imagine Sean Payton being fully comfortable with a rebuild year, even if he likes Jarrett Stidham. I don't think he likes Jarrett Stidham that much. I also don't know how the hell he likes Jarrett Stidham, but that's neither here nor there. I feel like there's more that needs to be done for that group. Los Angeles, the Chargers. I am curious what happens with Justin Herbert. You've gotten rid of his weapons, and you can point out that Mike Williams and Keenan Allen were both in their 30s, and that they still have Quentin Johnson. Quentin Johnson's not number one. He hasn't shown that, at least to this point. We know they're going to try to run the ball with Jim Harbaugh now at head coach. I wonder what that does for Justin Herbert, who Harbaugh says he loves, but is getting paid a lot of money. You haven't given him anything to work with, and as I was detailing earlier, that often plays a lot of a role in what the quarterback can do. So if you're taking away his weapons, again, they lost both wide receivers and they lost tight end Gerald Everett. Austin Eckler's also gone as well. I forget where he landed, but he also signed elsewhere. So there's a lot of change going on in Los Angeles that around Justin Herbert, who they're going to be expecting to continue to progress. And I don't know if you're setting up for success. Now we'll see what they do in the draft. That likely makes I think the number 5 overall pick will probably go towards a receiver. But rookie receivers can have trouble adapting to the NFL game. So it's just an interesting situation. Also, minor wrinkle, just going to throw this out there. We do know that Jim Harbaugh coached J.J. McCarthy and loved J.J. McCarthy. My tinfoil hat trade scenario here is that you get J.J. McCarthy landing in Los Angeles and the Minnesota Vikings trading up to acquire Justin Herbert. That's the wild tinfoil hat theory that I have that I know is not coming to fruition, but I think would be absolutely ridiculous. Not happening, but it would absolutely be ridiculous and set the NFL on fire if it did go down. Justin Herbert to the Minnesota Vikings, who end up trading the number 11 overall pick, 12. 11. Broncos are 12. 11th overall pick to the Chargers so that they can get J.J. McCarthy to pair him with his college football head coach. That's just what my thoughts on it are. And I again, tinfoil hat. Don't expect it to happen. Don't think that's even likely to happen. But that would be cool. Switching gears. We are nearing the NBA playoffs, and I think I checked in on this last time that I had a solo show, but I'm going to do it again just to give a quick recap and synopsis on what I think is going to happen, man. It is the Nuggets world until they get knocked off, so we'll just leave them out of it. I am very much you got to beat the champ type of person, and we haven't even started the playoffs, so until they get eliminated, can't discount them. Elsewhere though, we know the Celtics are going to be tough. I do worry about their crunch time execution, their durability with the guy like Kristaps Porzingis. Jaylen Brown shown that he can have some shakiness in crunch time moments. Jason Tatum can be a black hole offensively. Milwaukee's inconsistent, right? You see them, they surge late to hold off the Phoenix Suns, and we'll talk about them in a second, to get a win today. Philadelphia is still hoping that Joel Embiid comes back. Miami is Miami. New York is banged up still. And I wonder about their ceiling. I wonder about that grit and grind ceiling in the postseason. Because when you're living that way, it's kind of tough to make a deep run because you're going to be facing all good teams, and they all can. If they don't defend at the highest level, they defend good enough to let their offense that is probably at the highest level take over. So I would be concerned about that. And then you got the playing field and Cavaliers right outside of that, but the Bulls, the Hawks, the Nets are outside of the race, but they're trying to battle back. The East is top heavy, but I don't put past any team on the lower rungs to, first of all, the playing tournament could be anybody's game, first and foremost. But after that, if those teams make it, anything can happen. I wouldn't expect any of those playing teams to win a 7-game series, but I could see them getting a couple of games and making it very interesting for the higher seeded team and having them sweat a little bit before they get to move on to the next round. In the West, rather, right? Timberwolves are hoping Cat comes back. You got the Thunder, you got the Lakers and the Warriors jockeying for the bottom position. Quick sidebar. I know that they're both old, but it's a reminder of how far along in their careers Stephen Curry and LeBron James are. That they're still the stars that they are, but their teams are battling it out for the bottom rung of the play-in tournament. Like, it's crazy to even think about. There's context to that, injuries and inconsistency and all that stuff always plays a part. But these are the two big dogs in the game in the last 20 years, 10 to 15, 20 years. And they're both closer to the end, far closer to the end than they are to the beginning. It's a bit sad, a bit humbling when you think about it that way. Remembering when both of those guys entered the NBA, but also it's a reality check of it's a new league, and they're not the juggernauts that they once were. It's crazy. Now back to the Western Conference. I don't think that the Timberwolves, unless they can get healthy, are going to be much of a threat to anybody. I like Anthony Edwards-Star. Rudy Gobert, though, is a playoff liability. We've seen that before. So you need Cat to diversify your attack enough to make it feasible in the postseason. And I'm making sure that I got the rest of the right standings here because I know I jumped around a bit in the Western or in the Eastern Conference. I don't want to do that here in the West. So looking up at the West, and then you still got, like I said, the Lakers and the Warriors at the bottom at the rung there. You still got, I guess Houston's still close enough to the Lakers to make them sweat a little bit right now in the play-in tournament race. At the top, OKC and Denver, like I said, Minnesota's right there. The Clippers. Let's talk about the Clippers. Kawhi is healthy. PG's battled injuries, but Kawhi has been healthy. And if you've watched Kawhi Leonard over his career, he turns it up a notch. I think he's one of the few players that averages more points in the postseason, something like that, right? He's got that weird better in the postseason than in the regular season type of thing going on. A lot of that had to do with him not playing as much in the regular season, but he takes it up a notch when it comes the second season. So if they can keep him healthy, I don't know how many teams that are going to want to face the Clippers. And we could talk about they're not deep and they don't have the bench. That's the third. You don't really ride your bench in the playoffs anyway. They're going to be playing a long time with those starters. That's why it's important to keep George healthy because without him, they falls apart. But Kawhi is playing at a level that reminds me of, oh, that's right. This is Kawhi Leonard still when he has to be. He doesn't move as well as he used to. Has never really had dribble moves, but he's so effective and so efficient and still that dude when he's healthy, and he is. And so teams have to be very wary of facing the Clippers when they get to the postseason. I think that's going to be a team that could surprise more than a few teams when they get there. I don't have a lot of faith in Dallas. I think they're very paper thin, and I think that a tough physical team is going to knock them out. Sacramento, same thing. I like Sacramento, and I think they got a little bit tougher. I think they're still probably a physical presence away. I'm not a Sabonis fan in the postseason, but I know he's owning the Lakers and Anthony Davis. I just don't have a lot of faith in Sabonis' ability. Especially if he has to go up against a guy like a Jokic, right? He's going to just get out physical. He's just not physical enough to me. And so that's where I would see that. So the favorite there is still Denver, but that's them. I would probably go with the Clippers. And that's taking into account the youth in Oklahoma City, the injuries and the liability that is Rudy Gobert in Minnesota. Phoenix is paper thin. I don't trust Phoenix. I don't trust New Orleans. And then really that's all I can put much faith in because the Lakers, as tough as they are, nobody wants to face them. They have dealt with injuries in a way that I think is you also like the other shoe is just going to drop on them. Now, that may not happen. They may make it to the final. This is the reigning Western Conference runner-up that I'm talking about. So they probably have the best chance to prove me wrong out of all those groups down there. But I don't have any faith in any team after the 4th seed in the West. Any. And in the East, going back to that real quick, I would say it's probably the top 2. I skipped right over Orlando, who is making the Bulls look foolish, more foolish by the day. The West, I think, is going to be between. I was going to say it's going to be between Denver and Boston or Milwaukee. That's not bold. I'm not jumping out here, but hey, this is the Anti-Hot Take Sports Show, which is why I tried to give you that calm, cool, level-headed recollection of what's gone down with Justin Fields and on this. That's going to do it for this episode of Triple Zeroz. Be sure to follow me on X at Josh E. Buck. Hit up the show, Clocker Sports. Hit up the website, clockersports.com. Email just contact. We're going to try that one more time because I screwed that all up. Hit me up on Facebook. Hit me up on X at Josh E. Buck. Follow me on I can't get the exit. We're going to get out of here smooth. That's what we're going to do. That's going to do it for this episode of Triple Zeroz. Be sure to follow me on X at Joshy Buck. Hit the Facebook page, Clocker Sports, website, clockersports.com, and email address is contact at clockersports.com. And, of course, follow the show on X and on Facebook at 30spod.com. That's number 3, zeros and pod. And, of course, you can read all the stuff on Clocker Sports. Check out Last Word on sports, heavy sports, Bulls, Broncos, Lakers, Vikings. We're doing a lot of stuff over there. Soaring down south for the Hawks, Nerves, and everything gets aggregated over at clockersports.com. And, of course, until the very next time, you already know what it is, man. I'm gone.